Welcome back everyone, my name is Sam and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can rig a vehicle. Now this will be done using 3ds Max, but I believe that you can apply those same notion to pretty much any 3D software that you want. This video is going to be in 3 parts. First one, I'm going to show you a really simple technique if you are using Unreal Engine. Afterwards, I'm going to show you how you can rig it using actual bones. So if the first technique doesn't work, you can manually set up the bones yourself. And afterwards, it's going to be more of a bonus part. I'm going to show you how you can test to see if the rig actually works and if everything is set up properly. And I'm going to test it using Unreal Engine, so you can either download it or skip that part, because like I said, it's more of a bonus than a mandatory task that you need to do. But testing if a rig actually works is really important. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so here I am in 3ds Max. This is going to be the model I'm going to be working on. This is actually a free 3D models that I've downloaded off free3d.com. I'm going to put a link in the description if you want the same. And it's really great for a 3D model that's free. It has full interior and even a steering wheel, which I'm going to be rigging. And yeah, that's really great. And the preparation work that I did on it is I made sure to detach everything that I wanted to have a control on. So this includes the wheel, doors, steerings, and the hood. And something else that I did is I made sure to set the pivot point to where I actually want to have control on. So the hood opens up that way, and yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that needs to be said. So if you didn't do it already, I suggest you do so. Okay, so before exporting a rigged vehicle, we need to make sure of a few things. This is actually kind of like a quality process. You can see it like that. So the first thing we want to make sure is that the X-form is reset. So you do that by going to the Utilities panel and resetting the X-form. Now we just go into the modifier stack, add an edit poly, and collapse it. So now when we pick a mesh and use the scaling option, you can see that everything is set to 100. And just to make sure that everything's going to be fine, we can reset the transform and scale. So this is the first step. Second, we need to make sure that the car is actually up to scale. And as you can see, I believe 1 grid square is 1 centimeters. No, it's 10 centimeters. So my car is actually 3 centimeters tall, which is not good at all. So to make sure that the scaling is right, I'm going to create a cube and set the height to be 180 centimeters. So this is the average human height, and we want to match that with our cars. God, this is so tiny. So I'm just going to scale that up until it matches. If I take this and set it like that, a little bit less. This is a low car, I don't want it to be as low. Yeah, this is fine. I'm going to delete this, and since I've scaled the car up, the scaling is now off, so we will do it again. Just like that. Okay, so second, I want to make sure that the car is actually, third one, sorry. I want to make sure that the car is leveled with the ground as well. So I'm going to go into orthographic view and make sure that the tip of the wheel actually touches the tip of the floor. So in order to be more efficient, I'm going to unselect that, create a link between the chassis and all the other parts. So when I move this, everything moves, and I'm going to change the pivot point to be the tip of the wheel. So now, if I just right click on that, it's now labeled. Okay, great. And what else? Oh yeah, we need to make sure that the car faces the x-axis, and now it's not. So yeah, just undo the link. I'm gonna do the link again, just like that. So now it's facing the right direction, the car is level with the ground, and the X form is set up properly. So we are good to go. Okay, so the first technique, well, it's not even a technique, it's that easy, but if you are working with the Unreal Engine and you want to bring a car into Unreal Engine, there's actually a really quick way. You pretty much select everything, unselect the root, which is going to be my chassis, and you just create a link. And voila, you have your basic rig. Now it's really simple, but I didn't know that, so I'm guessing somebody might not know that. But basically, when you import something in Unreal Engine, let's say I bring that in, you can just select import meshes in hierarchy. So it's going to create bones for every mesh you have, and the root, in my case the chassis, is going to be the root bone. So you just click that, import the mesh, and voila, you have your basic rig all set up properly. Okay, so the second technique is going to involve using actual bone to rig the car. So first we need to create a bone, just like that. And in our case, we don't need this bone right there, we just need the joint. This is going to be the root bone, so we are going to set it to be centered in the wall and have no rotation as well. Going to name that bone root. And what we need to do, we need to make a bone for every mesh pieces. So one quick way to do that, we just copy paste it, make sure it's not instance, and we just click on the align option and align the bone to the desired mesh. So that's pretty much why we separated and placed pivot point to where we want to actually have control over the mesh, because it's a lot quicker to place the bones. So I'll go over and repeat this process for every mesh. Okay, so now we have a bone for every mesh. So what we need to do, we need to change the name of the bone so that they match their mesh, their pieces that they need to influence. So in instance, this one need to be renamed Wood, because in our game engine, it's only going to import the bones. So if we don't change the name, we won't know what does what. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that we have everything set up properly, I'm gonna go ahead and attach everything in order to create one big mesh. Actually, before you do that, if you are going to have a bone that's inside the car, just make sure to open the door, so it's gonna be easier to select. Just like that. Now repeat the process. What's happening? Oh. Okay, so now everything's set up properly. So I'm gonna apply the skin modifier. And what this skin modifier does, it actually takes a bone and it's going to assign vertices of the mesh to that bone, so that when you move that bone, it's going to actually move that desired part. So in instance, I have a joint right there and I want that joint to influence the vertices of the wheel only, nothing else. So first, we need to go to that little section right there and we need to add every bone that we'll need for this mesh. And it's going to create an envelope of influence for every bone that we imported. So in order to visualize the actual envelope, we can just go ahead and click edit envelope, and if we just scroll through every bones, you can see that it influences a certain part of the mesh. And this is not what we want, so we will need to set them properly. I won't go over every detail in the skin modifier, mainly because we don't need to know all of them to rig a car. It's pretty easy. The only one we need to be worried about is the weight tool. Now this one will allow us to set a weight. It's actually going to allow us to separate vertices that needs to be influenced and those who don't need to be influenced. So in our case, we are going to set the root first, and I'm going to actually make sure to check that option right there so that you are able to edit the vertices. And I'm going to select every vertices and set a weight to 1. So now the root bone is influencing the whole mesh, which is not what we want, but it's easier to start that way. So I'm gonna go over the door bone and I'm going to only select these vertices right there and set a weight to 1. So now when I pick the root bone, it doesn't influence the door anymore, and if I pick the door bone, it only influences the door, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to repeat this process for every bone. Okay, so every bone is set up properly, and I forget to mention that actually I was just too quick, but basically you can just set the weight right there, and in our case 1 means 100%, so every vertices that we select is going to be influenced by 100% from the bone. So that's the only option we need to worry about. And that's pretty much it. So now if we just go through every bone, you can see actually that it's not right. The steering wheel is not supposed to be there. Okay, now take 2. If we go to every bone, you can see that it influences the proper area. So that's pretty much it. That's how you set up a basic rig for a car. So now if we just select, let's say this bone right there and move it, it's going to influence this part of the mesh, even though it's a complete mesh. So from this point, you can export it to your game engine. And in my case, I'm going to export it in Unreal to test to see if the actual rig is working properly in the game engine. So I'm going to export it. Let's say tutorial rig 2. I'm going to export it as an FBX. And this are the option I'm going to use to export it. The only one you really need to be worried about is the Y. You need to make sure that the axis conversion is set to Z up, not Y up, and that should be good to go. So I'll see you in Unreal. Okay, so like I mentioned before, this part right there is optional because if you are not going to use Unreal Engine, then it's totally fine. You can skip that. And but if you want to test to see if the rig is working properly, we need to create a basic car setup in Unreal Engine. It's not going to be a playable car. It's just going to utilize some of the car tools in the engine to create a basic car simulation so that we can see if the collision and physics is working properly, which is a good indication that the rig is actually correct. So you open up Epic Game Launcher and you launch it, which should pop up this window right there, and you create a new project using the vehicle option. And you'll end up with a basic scene like that. And in the down menu right there, you have the option to import. I'm going to import the car. And by default, the option should be fine, but if they are not selected just like mine, make sure they are. Okay, so if you double click on the car model, you can see that it actually imported properly. And there's an option right there to select the skeleton. And as we can see, every bone is imported properly. So if I select the hood, I can actually rotate only the hood and not the whole car. And if I select the roof, it's actually moving the whole car right there. So that's a good sign that we are on the right path. So I'll go ahead and close that window right there, and I'm going to change the physics asset, which is going to be actually we are going to change the collision box, because as we can see, that wired mesh right there is actually the boundary of the collision, and we don't want to have a cylinder or a capsule. We want to have a sphere for this, and I'm going to remove the collision for the door and the hood as well, because it doesn't really matter. We don't need to test these. We just need to test to see if the wheels actually doesn't go through the floor. So go ahead and delete everything. New body, box type, and I'm going to raise that so that it doesn't touch the floor, just like that. And if it seems confusing, I'm sure it does because I don't go over a lot of functions. It doesn't really matter. I might go a longer tutorial on that in the future, but this is always the same option that I use, so you don't really need to understand them. You just need to remember the steps to create this blueprint, and it's gonna be fine. So sorry if I don't go over more detail than this. So we need to create a few class for our car. The first one is going to be a wheel, a vehicle wheel, which is going to be used for our wheel. Like I mentioned, it's not going to be a playable car, so we don't need to do one for the back wheel, just for the front wheel. And oh, wrong option. We need to make a tire data assets, just like that. This will act as our tire, as you guessed it. And if we double click on that class, we have the option to select a tire config. And I have two that are named the same one. Doesn't really matter, it's both default values. So just select that, and lastly we need to create an actor, which is a wheeled vehicle actor, and this will hold all the needed information for the car. So if you double click on that, you will end up with a little menu right there, and you have two options right there, which is mesh and vehicle movement. So if I click on mesh, you can select the vehicle mesh. In my case, it's going to be this one right there. Yours might be different. And last step, we only need to set up the vehicle movement. And if you click on that, you'll end up with a lot of menu open, and the only one we need to really worry about is this one right there. So this one is just going to tell the software that this needs to be treated as a wheel. So what we need to do, we need to set up a class for this. I'm just gonna ping front for every wheel, which is basically this class right there. Front, 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 front. And this second part right here is really important. This is where we will tell which bones need to be treated as a wheel. So if we click on that and select the skeleton, you can see that we have a bunch of options right there. So I'm just going to copy the bone to every pieces. Now for those of you that are watching but already did this, it might seem like I don't say a whole lot about this, but for the purpose of only testing a rig, it doesn't really matter that you fully understand what you're doing. So now it should be good to go. So if I just pick the actor, drop it in the world, and simulate, the car should drop on the floor and stay on the floor. Just like that. So we can see that the mesh, well actually the rig, is working properly. Now this wheel right there is going a little bit in the floor because we need to, actually we can just modify this class right there, which is now not working properly. I wonder why that is. It keeps doing this. It's like, okay, guess we're not going to. But if I open this and then, okay, I don't understand why it's not working. Anyway, it's working properly, but if you want it to be sitting right on top of the floor, you double click on that and hopefully it's not going to give you this. I don't know why it does this to me. It only does this when I'm recording. Maybe that has something to do with this. But you basically double click on that, and over there should be an option which is called radius, and you just increase the radius until when you simulate, the car is sitting on the actual floor. So the car right now has the right physics, so if I just, let's say, just throw that forward, you can see that it actually keeps going just like a real car. So that's pretty much all we need to do to verify that the rig is working properly. Really nothing crazy. And so I hope this video was useful. I don't know if I should have done this last part right there. Let me know in the comment section what you think about that. But I think that's definitely something important to verify that the rig is actually working properly. So yeah, see you in the next video. Hey guys, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to learn more about 3D. Let me know in the comment section what topic you would like me to cover, and I'll make sure to add it to my list. Peace!